I've been asked a few times in the comments in some of the videos to do a film on cleaning. I've resisted these in the past purely because my cleaning setup is quite primitive. But just of late I've been encouraged that if I can achieve reasonable results, then anybody can. And it's exactly the reason that this channel was set up, to show you that sort of more or less anybody can get on with this with a bit of practice and a starter for 10. So what I'm cleaning at the moment is this breastplate. It's an early 14th century breastplate. It's quite large. It doesn't fit in my bench grinder, which we'll see later just over there. So what I like to do first of all is give it a quick pass with one of these, and what that does is it shows any bits that I've not planished very well. There's one just here, a couple over here and so on. I think there's one, there we go, if I can find it. And it just shows those blemishes and dinks and so on. So I'll have a quick look at the tool, then I'll show you the results it gives me and how you change those results, and then we'll move on to the next phase. So it's a bit of a confession time. I'm a bit further on with this than perhaps I'd like to be if I was making a full instructional video. My wife basically told me off and told me to get on and make the film because I was just nervous about how primitive and simple my cleaning setup is. But she told me off and basically said if you can do it with that stuff, then anybody can. So here we are, this is where we're at. So what I've done is I've made the breastplate, I've roughed it out, I've planished it principally from the inside, and what I've tried to do is create a nice smooth surface to the touch on the outside, so it's not sort of feeling like it's going over any valleys and hills and so on, because those will show up when you come to polish this. You'll be able to see them in the way that the light plays across the surface. So this outer surface really should just look like a version of that on the outside there. Like I say, I'm a bit further along than perhaps I would have been. So what I'm using at the moment is a nylon backing plate. You can get rubber ones as well. They've got a little bit of flex in them, so it lifts out the harshness of this than, say, if I was trying to clean a surface with, say, a 1mm slip disc and scrape it across, one little misfire and you dug a dirty great hole through there, or if you tried to, say, use a grinding disc or so on. Now, when I with other armourers, principally Dave Hewitt at White Rose Armouries, he's got a lovely three-phase setup and it's gorgeous, and you wouldn't need to do this. This is quite primitive by comparison to those decent setups. But what I'm doing here is I'm trying to remove the black from the surface, and then what it does is it shows, as you can see here on the side, the areas that need extra attention in the planishing, where I've been a bit lazy. I've not planished perhaps as well as I ought to. Here we go, you can see that nicely there. And all it does is it just skates across the top of the surface, and anything that's low it'll show up because it won't remove the blackened material. It'll just sit like that. Now when I'm faced with this, I've got a couple of choices on my hand. I can grind away at this and remove the top surface and make it all nice and smooth that way, but often that will show because you'll have a flat mark here if you've not been careful, you've not blended it in nicely, but also you're thinning the material, and quite dramatically so, when there's no need there. Now a lot of folk will say that any grinding of the surface is going to remove material, and naturally that's exactly what you're doing. You're taking that scuddy surface off the top and you're revealing the nice shiny metal underneath. It's part of the appeal of armour through the centuries, is that you can clean it, and they went to great lengths to clean it sometimes, and even gold plated it and all sorts of things. So it was a desirable effect, but an expensive one. But I just want to show something, because a lot of people say how badly you're thinning the material right down. So I've got here just a standard permanent marker, and all I'm going to do, if it'll work, not really very well. So what I'll do is I'll get another standard permanent marker and we'll give that a go. There we are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind that surface the way that I'm recommending you grind the surface of this now, just to show it doesn't remove that much material. Just imagine how thin that is across there. So I'll get my goggles on and my ear defenders, we'll give that a quick grind and I'll show you what I mean. So what I'm going to do is, just to show the level that I'm saying you need to grind the surface at to see if it's smooth or not. Okay, we're not grinding millimetres of material away. It's just a quick, gentle pass with this tool. So much so, you can see that black marker pen there. Let's see if we can still see it afterwards, or some of it at least. Helps if the grinder's plugged in. We're building the tension. Here we go. Take two, why not? So that is the amount that I'm talking of, the amount of pressure that you need, and you can see in places where I've passed the grinder over, you can still see the basics, enough of that marker pen there to see that I'm removing next to no material. I'm just trying to reveal whether or not my planishing has been up to scratch, because if it isn't, if I can get this on camera, it looks like that. There we go. And I need to revisit this section here, or this whole side section to be fair, and planish that back nicely. Okay, so I'll get that done and then we'll move on to the next phase. So here's that side that I was working on. You can see how with a few light passes of this I've been able to show any more dinks and dents I've needed to lift out and planish out. And now we've got a smooth piece of metalwork under the hand there. Sure, the surface isn't smooth, and that's because of the grinding, the sanding disc, but the actual feel of it is now smooth. It's not undulating under my hand. You can see we've got rid of all those marks there. Whilst I was doing that though, I thought I'd have a brainwave. I had a brainwave on how to present this a bit better. What I'm going to do is I've done a sanding disc pass across this and lifted out those last little bits of planishing so we can see how those two bits work together. And now what I'm going to do is just work on this piece at the front here because it's nice and easy to see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the next section, then the next bit, then the next bit, and we'll be able to see the grades of it as we go across. So at the minute that's an 80 grit sanding disc. It's just gone across. I've tried to keep the grain of it running top to bottom, but not too much, because it just makes the next stage a bit easier. And it's not hard, as we've shown earlier. It will leave, you're just doing a quick pass, so light in fact that it will leave some ink residue on the surface. You just want to check that it's smooth to the touch. Next bit I'm going to use is an 80 grit flap wheel. Now a flap wheel that I tend to use are ones like this. As I said, my setup here is quite primitive. It's just a single phase, I think it's 1 or 1.5 horsepower grinder. We're going to take a look at it in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to use an 80 grit on that just to smooth all of this off and get rid of all these different grains of movement I've got on here. And I'll put that across there and then we'll take a look at where we're at during that. So here's my cleaning rig, pretty much in all of its glory. It's just the standard bench grinder. I bought it years ago expecting it to conk out within a year or so of use, and it just keeps on going and going. It's not even a named brand. I think it was about 30 or 40 pounds from B&Q, but it's been an absolute workhorse for me. And what I've done is I've put on this spindle on the end here so that it will take these. What you do is just slide them on. First time when you've got to sort of get them square, but then they're only sort of MDF in the middle there, and they pick up the thread that's on the end of the spindle here after their first couple of goes. Don't need to put them on tight. If you mess it up and they're not on tight, all that happens is they fall off even when they're in use and flying. They don't spin off and give you a haircut or anything like that. And they don't need to be wound right on tight because they'll tighten themselves up. And that is my basic setup for cleaning. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at the breastplate. I'm going to try and see if I can get it filmed so it cleans on there, and away you go. Now before I do that, because my cleaning setup is so basic, a couple of words on safety. You get off these flat discs, you can get grit spun up into your face, and if you're wearing normal glasses like these ones, what can happen is the grit will come up under the cheek, bounce off your cheek and go in your eye, I found. So I tried to get slightly bigger ones than those ones, and more or less the same thing can happen. I've had 2 trips to the eye hospital because of these sorts of things. I would recommend either a full face mask that completely covers your face, or spend some money on a pair of glasses like these ones, have the rubberized bottoms, and then it's impossible for the bits and pieces to spring up and get in your eye. Absolutely vital. Only cost a few quid, much better to do that than lose a day to the eye hospital, or worse still even, lose your eye. It's unlikely with these, but there's always that chance. They throw up a lot of dust and muck. My wife's got my full set, which comes with eye covers as well, but with these coupled with the glasses, you're not breathing in all that muck. You don't go home feeling like you've just eaten about 1 kilo of sand, but more importantly, it's not all in your lungs as well. So really vital to get a pair of those. Gloves, opinions divided on gloves. People say, oh, it can pull your hand into the machine, it can do all these different things. I sometimes wear them, I sometimes don't. And of course the old ear defenders as well. Anyway, to the cleaning.